let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and you should be able to see the questions. We are going in order of upvotes. So the first question we have has got 300 and something upvotes, which is how, you and I both talk about the importance of time blocking, like putting something in the calendar. But once it's in the calendar, how do you stay committed to actually doing the thing? I think that's what this person is asking.
Look, this is one of the key issues with time management. It's not just managing your time, but executing what you decided to actually do. In my opinion, when people are struggling to execute, it's either because they don't trust the plan or they're scheduling too much, right? So the first issue comes along when it's you've put on your calendar, hey, let's work on my novel, let's work on my $1 billion startup, but your brain doesn't really trust you know what you're doing. And it feels like you just put that on there so that at the time you could feel as if you're making progress towards some grand goal, but you have no real idea how to actually succeed at this goal, or it's probably not realistic. Our brains are very good plan evaluation machines. It will evaluate, we don't have a good plan here, I don't want to actually exert energy. The other issue is if it's really reasonable things, it's just work you need to do for your job, and you find yourself having a hard time summoning the energy to finish all those things, you're probably trying to do way too much, right? It's a slow productivity principle. Slow down, do less, reasonable schedule, repeated day after day after day adds up to a large amount of work over time. So I usually put one of those two culprits is usually what I'm looking for when I see sort of issues actually like executing what's planned.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I guess for me, one thing, I very much agree with those points. I'm just thinking in my own life. Yeah, it's when I'm like trying to do a thing where I really don't trust the plan, or I'm like, when I was first trying to start a business and I read advice on like, just sit down and come up with startup ideas and you'll start your business. I was like, what? Like, I think it was like a self-efficacy thing. I didn't think I could actually do the thing, or that what I was going to do was actually going to get me to where I wanted to go. And therefore I found all sorts of possible reasons to not even try.
Well, I think this is part of the problem with the online productivity is because it's often we're talking to a large audience. Sometimes advice is overly generalized, and this is what happens: is you're like, well, if I could just do these, like have business ideas, that'll be the first step towards having a business. Where I think it's really an art. There's an art to figuring out what you want to do. Like early in my career, I wrote this article for Ramit Sethi's blog. We're sort of contemporaries. We knew him from way back when. It was controversial at the time, but the premise was don't get started, which was like very much against the sort of first decade of the 2000s sort of West Coast self-help type of like get after it type mindset. But my whole argument was it's a lot harder than people realize to figure out the right thing to do, right? And our brains just know, like you feel fuzzy in the moment when you say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week because it's going to feel great to be in shape. But if you don't really know what you're doing there or have confidence that it's going to make you stronger and what you're trying to do there, and you've seen it work before, man, our brains are so good at that, because how else would we survive as a species? That's the way I think about it, is it takes energy to go and do things, and we come up with lots of plans. Like, should I charge at the mastodon and just try to kill it with my bare hands? Or brain's like, that's not a good idea. I'm going to remove motivation for that plan. Oh, maybe I should throw a spear at the mastodon from afar. Oh, we've seen that work. Good. I'm going to induce motivation for that. So like procrastination a lot of times is really just what it feels like for a brain to reject a plan that it doesn't trust has been fully thought through. I think we underestimate how hard it is to actually figure out the right things to do sometimes.
Nice. I think that actually relates quite nicely to question number 2, which also has like 350 upvotes. But Cal, how to actually sit and do stuff? Everyone says to get things done, but how do you actually do stuff that you don't want to do?
Well, I'll be interested in how you approach this, but part of this depends on how busy you are. I had this conversation with Oliver Berkman on my podcast a few months ago because he has less to do than I do. So we had two different answers to this. So his answer, he said, really the ideal setup for just getting stuff done is to have one thing that's important to you, and that's what you do in the morning. Right? I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna focus. That's just what I do on that one thing. And then I do my best with the time that remains in the day to sort of get on top of other small stuff, right? He's like, that's probably optimal. And I agree, like that's probably best for our brains. But if you have a lot more than that to do, right? Your job, or like in my situation where I have 3 jobs, time blocking to me is the only way to do it. And you can't time block your whole day because that's impossible. But you got to take your work day, you got to time block it, give every minute a job. And then the only commitment you're making and trying to uphold is I do my best to follow my time block plan. I think when you're busy, it's just really difficult to get stuff done in an efficient manner, in a reasonable, sustainable manner, without actually having a plan for it. The sort of what am I going to work on next mindset, you burn out, your energy burns out so much earlier. So, I say like Oliver's idea, work on one thing hard for a few hours, deeply, no distraction, and then do your best to get on top of small stuff. If your schedule makes that possible, that's probably more humane. If it doesn't, time blocking is the only thing I know that actually makes sure that like all the plates keep getting spun. But I don't know. Your busyness is pretty high, right? I'm not sure which you time block, don't you? How do you make it work?
Oh yeah, so that's like is always the thing that I swear by. I used to be a lot busier when I had a real job, and it'll be like commuting, like getting up in the morning, commuting an hour to work, being at work for like 9 hours of the day, commuting an hour back, trying to cook, and then trying to like edit some videos in the evening to like crank out some stuff. It's like along that journey, there were many, many, many moments where I knew I had to do something and I didn't really want to do it. In those moments, so there's Tim Urban has a really good TED talk about this that I'm sure you're familiar with it, where it's like when there is a deadline or when there is a serious negative consequence for doing a thing, usually we don't have a problem. The panic monster comes into it. So, for example, I'm not sure if anyone else has had this issue, but I never used to look forward to Mondays. I used to not look forward to going to work. It'd be Sunday night. I'd be like Monday morning, but like I've got to drag myself out of bed to get to work. That's an example of doing something that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go to work, but obviously I went to work because I didn't want to get fired. I didn't want to get struck off the General Medical Council's register. The consequences for not doing it were so big that that negative motivation got me to do the thing that I didn't want to do. When it came to my like YouTube channel or my side business and things, I tried to induce that negative motivation again, and I found that to be really, really helpful. So there would be some days where I'm like, I'm really tired, I'm really whatever. I don't want to work on editing this video or like trying to send this email to this sponsor or whatever, when I was trying to build the business on the side. But what I would do is I kind of had two ways of approaching it. I had the carrot and the stick. The stick was I would visualize myself as a 45-year-old doctor who hates my life and is miserable and is not making any money because I'm working in the NHS in the UK. And that is, I literally saw that on a daily basis amongst the people that I worked with. And so it was very easy for me to negatively visualize, I do not want that life for myself. And so that was one source of motivation. But then there was the carrot, which was like, okay, I know I need to edit this video. How do I make it fun? That's the whole concept of feel-good productivity. Can I learn a new transition and just, spuriously apply it to this edit? Can I have a bit of fun with like the background music? Can I sort of subtly inject some like Lord of the Rings copyrighted music, but hope that the algorithm doesn't notice because I've compressed it by 0.9x? So technically, I'd be playing all these games and challenges with myself to just try and add some bits of fun to the process. So with the stick of, I don't want to end up hating my job or hating my life, and the carrot of, I can make this little task in front of me fun, I found that to be effective maybe 75% of the time, and the other 25% I just didn't do the thing. But over a long enough time horizon, things work out.
Well, let me point out, by the way, that your definition of making things fun is adjusting compression ratios for Lord of the Rings music. So we'll let that hang. But I want to just quickly riff on that because the hat I'm wearing has this like comically long abbreviation. It's like a running joke on my show. I use this long abbreviation, VBLCCP, values-based, lifestyle-centric career planning. It's almost exactly what you're talking about, that especially when it comes to, let's focus on efforts that are non-urgent, right? There's no one making you do it, but it's tied to like a long-term success. So like you working on your YouTube channel when you're still a doctor. This is what we talk about a lot that's actually successful, and it's very similar to what you're talking about. You have a vision of the lifestyle that you want to get towards, right? So instead of thinking about a particular goal you want to accomplish, you're thinking about the lifestyle you want to be in 5 years. What's my day-to-day life like? What am I doing during the day? What type of place am I living? What's the rhythm of my life? You get this very rich image of what that life is actually back in a way that actually resonates. It has all these features in it that resonates with you, like whatever it is that you're looking for, and it's built in your values. And then you're working backwards from that vision to say, okay, given my particular obstacles and opportunities, how can I make a plan to get closer to that lifestyle? When you have a positive lifestyle locked in, so that's the tweak on, you're looking at the negative lifestyle eventuality of being the 45-year-old doctor. But when you have the positive lifestyle locked in and you keep returning to it, you keep stoking those fires of emotional resonance, like I want my life to be like that. And when people do this, by the way, it's never, I want to be in front of my jet, right? It's more, I want to be in the country, or I want to be in like the city and like working at a cool coffee shop. People have, it's tractable, but very specific things that resonate. That helps you motivate for sure on those non-urgent but long-term important tasks. It's like, well, why am I doing this? Because, these YouTube videos, if this becomes a full-time thing, is going to unlock this lifestyle where I work with these type of people and live in this type of place. And so working backwards from an ideal lifestyle can be incredibly effective for those things that really matter. And then the time blocking is really effective for, I just have a lot of stuff I got to get done. Like my boss needs me to do this, and I have to get this and get these forms in, and I do need to get this done or my life is going to get more stressful. So like that combination of lifestyle-centric career planning plus time blocking, you're coming at it from both ends. The long-looking, future-looking in, and the like very nitty-gritty, like those combined, there's a secret sauce right there.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is, again, with 332 upvotes. Oh, no. There was another one. Okay, well, this one is just one. How to be more disciplined. What's your take on discipline?
It's something I've been thinking about, like over this last year. I've been thinking about it more. I'm working on a chapter on this in a new book I'm writing. I've come to believe that discipline is something that you practice, right? That we too often think about discipline as an intrinsic trait, like you're either a disciplined person or you're not. I think of it more like an identity. If you practice it and get better at it, you begin to think of yourself as, oh, I'm a disciplined person. In the same way that if you run a lot, you eventually start to think of yourself like, yeah, I'm a runner. Right? It's not an intrinsic trait. It's something that you actually practice. And I've come to believe it's something that not only should be practiced, but it's kind of a foundational step to almost anything interesting. So like, I'm working on this book now on the deep life, right? And the point of the book is the sort of the mechanics of how do people transform their lives, not the content of what you should transform your life to. And one of the things I've really come to believe working on the book is that like step one is you have to get your act together and prepare to change your life. And then step two is like figuring out, doing the lifestyle-centric planning, like making the changes. The very first thing I write about now with that step one is discipline. So you got to practice like what it feels like to be disciplined. And there's a lot of things you can do. I talk about the discipline ladder sometimes on my podcast. You start with something small but non-trivial that you do regularly. And you mark it off like on a calendar every day. Did I do this? It's something that takes a couple minutes. You start something small, but you get in the habit of, you know what, I do this thing every day. Even if it's I read 2 pages of a book every day before bed or whatever. And then you ladder up to something a little bit harder. Well, okay, actually now I'm going to build on that feeling of I have a little bit of discipline momentum in this one area, and I'm going to read a chapter every day. And then you ladder up again. So you can ladder your way up from relatively easy things to things that require increasing amounts of discipline. It also seems to be useful to take on, hard projects, to just practice doing something hard and seeing them be successful and then enjoying the reward of it, because that's going to reinforce a long-term reward system loop that's going to make it easier to start the next time. Like that helps as well. So there's things you can do. Like the bigger point here is to change yourself into someone who you see as disciplined. And I've really come to believe more recently, oh God, this is something to work on. This is not, hey, just do it. Or maybe you're a disciplined person or not, or just white knuckle and be disciplined. It's like your 5K time. You got to practice if you want that to get better. So I really do think about discipline as like both critical and something that has to really be practiced. You have to get better at it.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about discipline, and I can't wait to read your book on this, is that anecdote. I haven't seen data on this. Maybe you can flag if it's there. But anecdotally, to me, it seems like people who spend a lot of time on the phone are less disciplined. And I was talking to a few friends about this who struggle to read books, because reading books requires you to sort of like, it's just like a slower form of entertainment than watching YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or TikToks or watching stuff on YouTube and things like that. And I was speaking to a few friends about this recently who feel like they can no longer read. They can no longer put in the time to read because they're just so used to the stimulation of the social media stuff. So I'm partly like that, but the way I got around this is I just listen to audiobooks at like faster speeds. So now I get the stimulation, but I also get the reading thing. I wonder, have you seen any data that correlates like social media use with this sort of like feeling like they're less disciplined?
Well, there's a broad trend, right? I mean, so the generation that we have right now that's at university level, for example, we know are reading much, much less. It also happens to be the generation that was completely raised and is the most immersed, with smartphones. So it is a little bit correlative, but I think it's absolutely true because I hear this from my readers and listeners all the time, that when you're looking at your phone, the thing that matters with looking at your phone is that when it becomes the default option for boredom. So this is all about dopamine-induced reward loops in your brain. You feel boredom, you have this very tight reward system neural loop that says looking at that phone will make this feeling go away and may give you a positive feeling, which could be excitement or laughter or outrage. So you get a flood of dopamine that says pick up that phone. That's a really tight cycle loop that gets really hard to get out of. And then what happens when you try to read a book? Your brain's like, this is boring. We need that system fires up. There's a phone over here. Let's grab that phone. It's why there's narrow experiments where they actually can see like moving the phone into the room while a subject is working on a particular type of intelligence test makes the performance go down than the phone not being in the room. Because again, when the phone is there, those loops really, really fire up. So, I mean, I think it's a very fair guess that phone usage really makes a problem. So I think of reading. I tell everyone, learn how to read books. Yeah, you're probably struggling now because you have this tight loop with your phone. Great, let's change your relationship with your phone. Now you have a great metric to know that you've done that sufficiently, that you're able to read books again. I mean, I see it the same as I used to be a pretty good runner. My mile time is terrible. I've just been like drinking a lot and like not moving much. I want to get better at it. Great, you're going to have to go train. And that's what people need to do with their phone. I mean, that's another one of the chapters in that step one of that book, Practice Discipline. Another chapter, Reclaim Your Brain. And it's really talking about, okay, I have to gain some cognitive autonomy from my phone if I'm going to succeed at almost anything else. If I'm going to be able to practice my discipline, get organized, and then succeed with executing plans that matter. So I think this is as critical as getting in shape is for physical health right now. Like it is the big threat to not just cognitive health, but like cognitive functionality, the ability to use your brain to do cool stuff.
Fantastic stuff. Here we go. I'd love to get your take on this as well, because we have a child on the way in May. And so is it possible to have a quick glance at how you build a scheduling system to stay productive while having a job, family with kids, maintaining a house, and having a side hustle? I guess in a way you do all of these things, because I guess you have 3 different jobs and also kids and also you maintain a house. How'd you do it, man?
Yeah. Well, look, first of all, I call it facing the productivity dragon. Your time is your time. The stuff you want to do is the stuff you want to do. They don't always match, right? So as you add more, I don't want to say constraints, but as you add, let's call them non-negotiable demands on time, like I have a kid now that I'm taking care of, the rate at which you can do other things goes down. And the quantity of other things you can do at once goes down. And this is in part why I wrote Slow Productivity. It was in response to, I have 3 kids, 3 boys. It was in part like usually I have a cultural reason I write a book, like this is an issue that the culture cares about, and a personal reason, like this is a problem I want to solve. The personal motivation for that book was my 3 boys all got to elementary school age, and boys in elementary school age just want dad time, like as much dad time as they could possibly get. And I wanted to give them that time. Like we're in this sort of small window where they actually want to spend time with me. And that led to like a lot of the ideas in Slow Productivity in response to that, which is basically you just slow down the rate at which you do things, take longer to do things. Like I'm writing another book now. It's going to be a while. I mean, I'm taking my time with it so that I don't have to be working on it big hours all the time. I do seasonality with big. So instead of trying to do everything at once, I do seasonality where, okay, here's a semester where I'm teaching and it's kind of a busy professor semester. So that's like mainly what I'm doing that semester. Then this semester is light on professor stuff. I'm going to spend more time writing, right? I also put big constraints around things. Podcasting is only allowed to take up like 4 hours of my week. And it just has to fit in those 4 hours. And if I can't do something in those 4 hours, then I can't do that thing in those 4 hours. And until I can hire someone to do this on the podcast, and I have to do it myself, that's time I can't spend doing, adding a new feature, whatever. So I've really learned to slow down, let things take longer. No one cares in the end how long things actually took. Be much more realistic about, I'm only going to be able to work on this and this today. And then all the small stuff I furiously time block. So like the time I have to do small stuff, I want to make sure I am taking advantage of that time, because I don't want small stuff impeding on other things that's going on. So I actually work a lot slower than people realize. It's just, you do it long enough, stuff piles up, and then people see the pile, and they imagine you working on everything in the pile all at once. And then that seems really impossible. But the reality is this stuff was all spread out over years. So slowing down, slow productivity, that's the way to do it with the family. Your time's your time. There's only so much you can do reasonably. And so work with that, work with the constraints.
And just sort of selfish follow-up to this, because I'm curious about it, is how, like, you could always be doing more book promo. You could always, I don't know, release new stuff. You could always be doing more things to make money while you're doing all of this stuff. And I think it would be easy to think, well, oh man, I just need to crank out that book this year, so that then, I don't know, royalty checks, or so that then I can have written 8 New York Times bestsellers rather than only 7, or like whatever the prestige mark might be. How have you found it helpful to sort of tone down the natural impulse to acquire money and status and like the stuff that then sort of impedes on your time?
Lifestyle centric career planning, like that's the whole key, right? You working backwards from, this is a vision of a life that's very compelling to me, and you're like, man, I've implemented that, and now the way I start thinking is, okay, how do I make this even better? And often better for me means, can I gain back even more time? Because ambition is weird. I've been thinking a lot about ambition, and it's a weird double-edged sword, right? But for me, like, a very formative experience was my academic career. So, I go to college, go to university. I'm studying computer science, and it's a small school. It's an Ivy League school, but it's not one of the big ones. And I'm a big fish in a small pond. Like, I'm just like crushing computer science. It comes like easy to me. So then I'm like, great, I can get my doctorate. I'm going to be a professor. So I go to MIT, and not just MIT, but I wanted to be a theoretician, computer science theoretician. So I went to the theory group at MIT, which is like this preposterous place. I wrote a New Yorker essay about this last spring. It was 4 people on my hallway had Turing prizes. There was 3 MacArthur Award winners. There was like professors that were my age, right? It was like crazy place. It completely just squashed out any idea that I was smart. I was like, oh, I see. Like, this is smart, right? And I was like, I'm never going to be as good as these, like, not these professors, but even just like the top grad students in the program. I was like, I am middling here, That was really important for me, because it sort of stamped out this idea that, like, I'm going to be the very best in the world at something. And like, that was very useful. And so I was like, great. So then what do I want to do? I want lifestyle. I want to like write and have huge amounts of flexibility in my schedule. That was a big thing for me, is flexibility. I don't like busy days. I like the control. If it's busy, I want it to be on my terms, because I chose it to be, not because I have a lot of meetings. And when you're working backwards from a lifestyle, like, you still want to do things good, right? I mean, and you do care about, like, I want to write good stuff and have, respect. You care about money, but it's more like, I want to have the money that makes this lifestyle work. And you don't really care about quadrupling that once you actually get to the lifestyle. And so that's been, I feel like I hit the lifestyle I hatched in my young 20s. I feel like I hit that in my late 30s. And now I'm just adjusting to make it better. It's less seeking than it is I'm trying to enjoy, and trying to figure out, like, podcasting is really interesting, for example, because podcasting, I was like, this might take the pressure off the books a little bit, because it's a much more constant income, more predictable income. And then you can have a little more breathing room with books and take some more time. You don't have to depend on it. So, like, all of this is sort of playing with this ideal lifestyle. I live in a cool small town that's like attached to a city, and I'm a professor and a writer who gets a lot of free time to just write. Like, I really have hit this lifestyle vision I had, and that takes me out of the, like, how do I get 10x the money?
Yeah, nice. That makes sense. One thing that we've been doing a lot in the last couple of days with people in this event is doing lots of, like, reflection about the kind of life that we want.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I wonder if you could throw us like a prompt or two that we can maybe even do like right now. That's like that would help someone figure out what sort of lifestyle they are trying to optimize for?
I think it helps to think about a day, right? Like the think about with visuals, visual cues and audio cues. Like really imagine, like what type of space are you in? Is it like an apartment in like a cool happening city, or is it you're walking out in the fields, with like your coffee and like the sun's coming up over a pond? Because I'm a big believer in that feeling. I call it resonance, but there's that feeling where like a particular image just makes you it attunes into you. You kind of like, ooh, that feels. I like the looks of that. I like the sounds of that. So you're creating this like image of a day, and then like what happens next? Is it, I'm heading into like a bustling office building, like we're like at the center of things. We're making moves and it's exciting. It's like in Wall Street, or is it I go out to my greenhouse and I'm checking on my whatever, and I go for a hike before I'm sitting down to like write in a journal. Like the pace of the day, the aesthetics of what surrounds you. Is it like people, like friends, you're meeting friends at like a hip bar afterwards, or it's like your family is coming over and you have like cafe lights on, some picnic table in your farm. It's looking for specific imagery and scenes that really resonate. Like, so you have that kind of ideal day. And then you interrogate that basically movie in your head to be like, what are the properties of this? Like, what is it about this sort of movie in my head of an ideal day? What are the properties of this thing that's really appealing to me? And then that's when you abstract out, what I like quiet, I like nature, I like culture and busyness and having like a lot of friends that were like doing lots of cool stuff. I like you're trying to identify. You get the properties out of the scene. You create the scene that resonates, and then you figure out like what are the properties of this scene that made it resonate, and now you have something to work towards. Well, how do I get those properties in my life? And then the answers might be different. It might not be exactly what you saw in that scene, but it gives you like a lot of interesting paths forward. So I'm a big believer in this. Have that crystal clear image in your head, that crystal clear movie in your head that resonates, and then interrogate that as like a way to try to extract what you're really looking for.
Sick. Thank you. That's very helpful. I will do that myself after the session. Okay. Next question is it going to load? Hang on, we did that one. Oh, we're lagging. Oops, I've done that one already. This one's interesting. How do you prevent hyper-productivity or over-optimizing?
Oh, man. You got to answer this one, too. I burn out. For me, it's easy. I have a natural governor. People assume I must be one of these hyper-productivity types, like doing, filling every minute of my day. And I'm the opposite. I get really stressed out by having a super full day. Like if I look at my calendar and there's a bunch of stuff on it, that really stresses me out. My ideal, like the type of things that appeal to me are endeavors where it doesn't really matter if you work on it or not tomorrow, but it would be a problem if you didn't work on it for the whole next month, right? It's like book writing is a great example. If you get sick on Tuesday, you're like, oh, I can't write today. It doesn't matter. No one's keeping track. Did you write today or not? You don't, it's all up to you. But if you just don't write for 2 months, that is a problem because you're not making progress on the book. And that's what I was always looking for because I get stressed by a constrained schedule. I'm happy to like work on something hard over time on my own schedule. But I just love the idea of, you know what, I'm going to go hiking this afternoon, or I'm going to go to a movie, or I'm going to reset. I don't like other people having big expectations of my time. So for me, I get stressed out when I try to be more hyper productive. Other people don't. Like other people get a high off of it, juggling lots of really different things, and that's not necessarily the worst thing. But the principle I often come back to help moderate this, and is from my book Slow Productivity, is you want to really obsess over quality. And when you get into the mindset of like, I want to do the thing I do best as good as possible, the hyper productivity stuff becomes, inefficient. Like I'm not getting better at the thing I do that I care most about if I have one of these like 25 things all fitted together in my schedule that I'm jumping back and forth between 15 things or whatever. The more you care about quality, the more sort of highly structured busyness just begins to seem anathema. Like, well, this is nonsense, or like this is frustrating, or I really want to just spend all morning thinking about this thing. So I don't know. Hyperproductivity that's never been my thing because it makes me sort of physically upset. Slow but quality, relentlessly working on something until it's too good to be ignored. Now you're speaking my language.
Nice. Yeah, my approach, like I've had various approaches for this over the years. When I was at university, the way I prevented hyperproductivity was I had a clear rule, which is whenever it's a choice between work and friends, I have to choose friends. I just have to. That's a clear rule. And that rule solves the hyperproductivity problem, because if I'm like, I can be hyperproductive in the time where I'm not hanging out with friends, but when I am hanging out with friends, I'm not allowed to do work. So it's like, oh, okay, now I can relax and enjoy the present moment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then, like nowadays, the way I do it, because I think about this a lot. You know, I imagine you do as well as someone in the space. I am really optimizing for three things: the three Fs: freedom, fun, and fulfillment. And the nice thing about these three Fs is that they all have a sweet spot where actually optimizing more is actually like counterproductive. So fun, like there's actually a sweet spot of fun. Trying to go for too much fun, like hedonism and like heroin and like, you know, dopamine, there comes a point where like there is a good amount of fun. Fulfillment, it's like, it's really hard to just like hyper productivity your way to fulfillment, because generally for most people, what is fulfilling is a nice balanced life where you've got enough time to work on things that really matter to you. And then freedom, it's the temptation is always there to try and make more money. But at a certain point, I've realized that freedom, the price of freedom is the money you leave on the table. So actually just being content to make less money than I could be making allows me to recognize that, hey, what I'm optimizing for is actually freedom, not money, not productivity, not efficiency, not like number of videos created or a number of books written. The goal is these three Fs: freedom, fun, fulfillment. And I keep an eye on those when I do my journaling and stuff to see like, okay, do I need to make any tweaks? And often I do find that the more full the calendar is, the less I feel that sense of fun, for freedom, and fulfillment. And so I recognize, okay, we've taken on too much stuff. Let's rein it in. Let's say no thank you to a few things. And actually, Cal, I was listening to one of your episodes about the power of saying no to stuff. I was like, oh man, I need to get better at saying no to things.
Do you get people, I bet you do you get people in your life, like in your professional life, who just get exasperated, like, well, how could you say no to this? Is this many dollars? I feel like there's a lot of that going on. Like, well, what do you mean you're not going to do this like speaking gig or whatever? Like, it's this many dollars. How could you say no to that many dollars? Or this came up for me recently with like making my podcast, having like subscription, and you could have like this and still keep this, and like there's X number of dollars on the table. And I was like, I don't want to do it. It's too much time. And they're like, what your time? It's going to make you X amount of dollars. Like, isn't that worth time or whatever? And I remember thinking, no, like that's the whole game, is like how much time, this ratio of time to like sufficient income is kind of the whole game. I assume you probably have numerous things you could be doing that are like multiple dollar signs. And there's probably people who are exasperated when you say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Weirdly, in my case, my team has learned to kind of be the ones campaigning for fewer dollar signs, because I have a tendency to be like, oh, we could, like for example, I agreed to a sponsorship that I really shouldn't have done because it's a lot of money, and the deadline is tomorrow, like literally tomorrow, and I haven't filmed the video yet. And I'm probably not going to do it. I hope Angus is not listening to this. He's going to be like, oh no, we're going to have to disappoint the sponsors. And it's like, there's situations like that where like over time, I still find it hard to, because like everyone's got a price. If a sponsor is offering X and X happens to be 5X more than a normal sponsor, it's like, sure, I can do that video 6 months from now because it's a problem for my future self. But then January 2025 rolls around and I'm like, oh no, I should have said no to that. And I've had this come up so often in my life that I'm like, oh, Angus says he's listening. I've had it come up so often in my life where over time I think I'm getting better at it, but it's still a struggle.
We're going to see Angus come in on off screen, coming into your screen just to yell at you.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Okay.
Nice. Okay. Right. We got 10 more minutes. So how to stop self-doubt. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah. Okay. We have 10 minutes. So I'll speed round it. so we can cover more. Okay, how to stop self-doubt. I always think knowledge matters. Like we don't spend nearly, when it comes to endeavors that we have doubt about, we don't spend nearly enough time really learning about that world. Like how do people do well in that world? What are the markers of it? What matters, right? Like what's the right path there? That really helps with self-doubt. The problem is it takes a lot of time and immersion in a world to really understand it and trust what you're doing makes sense. You're making, good progress. You can't do too many things. You got to choose your big endeavor. I want to try to be a writer or whatever. And then you got to be in that world and really understand it and be around other writers. Like knowledge, the more it's just you making stuff up, the more your mind properly probably doubts yourself. And the more you really understand the world, the more you know, like, look, I'm not that, but I'm doing pretty good. And this was good. And I'm at this level. And I think it's reasonable I could get to that level. And now I'm going to be motivated to do that work because I really trust that's a reasonable goal. So I'm a big fan of knowledge.
Nice. Yeah, I would agree with that. I have found that in domains where I feel a lot of self-doubt, my hack is to just listen to loads and loads of podcasts of people who are talking about the thing.
Yep.
Because usually I kind of realize, oh, okay. I mean, these people started off in the same kind of position as me. Like when I was trying to do a YouTube channel, I procrastinated for 7 years before doing it. But then when I started watching videos and listening to podcasts of other YouTubers, similarly when writing a book, or I listened to interviews with other authors, I was like, oh, everyone struggles with this. The fact that I struggle, it doesn't make me bad. It's just every writer seems to hate writing. Fantastic. This is good to know. And so the extra information really helps. Okay. Oh no, we've got 1,867 questions, which is why this is going slowly.
So was it one half second per question? We're fine.
How to be more motivated in the whole quarter? I guess everyone's just set quarterly quests, and our next kind of alignment workshop that we do do these every quarter, helping people set 90-day goals. But I guess this person who's asked this question often struggles with motivation.
Well, I would do weekly planning helps. So at the beginning of every week, you look at your calendar and you go back to those quarterly plans. And you say, okay, how am I going to make progress on this quarterly plan this week? And you actually get time on your calendar to do that. It becomes something that becomes part of your schedule. And you might even move some stuff around that's already on your schedule to clear up a better block for working, making sure quarterly plan's being expressed. I think that helps. It becomes kind of automatic. Yeah, every week I make a weekly plan, take a look at my week, make a plan for it, make sure my quarterly goals at least have some reflection in that week. And it's more mechanical than it is motivational. But it makes sure that progress keeps getting made, and then progress breeds motivation.
Yeah, 100%. I think on reading your advice on this, I've built that. I have a weekly review template that asks, what were my quarterly quests and how are they going? And I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna look at them now and I'll be like, oh yeah, I did intend to do that martial arts thing. Great, let me do something about it. Because otherwise, it's just so easy to set a goal and then forget about it like 2 weeks later because you just haven't looked at it again.
Yep.
All right, next question. Oh, we've done the discipline one. Come on. Oh, this is good. How can you battle the perfectionism of feeling like you have to do or be everything well, even though you know what's truly valuable to you?
Look, I think everything is so hard. It's just like a reality check. It's hard to do anything very well. And like the best you can do is try to do like one thing really well. And once you start doing something really well, you get much more grounded. And, I know how hard this thing is. And I know like how good the people are who are better. Like it's sort of humbling. So that's been my approach, is like try to be good at many fewer things. And then as you get better at those things, perfectionism gets a little bit harder because you're just much more reality bound, right? Like you're around other professional writers. You're like, oh man, that writer's, I keep doing this to myself. Like in academia, like being around MIT, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be as smart as like the top people. So like it humbles you. In writing, I write for the New Yorker. So like that helps establish like, oh, you'll never be as good as a nonfiction journalist as X, Y, and Z. They just rack up Pulitzers or whatever. And the better you get at something, I think the more reality bound you get. And then the more it's like process, it's you find satisfaction where you are. You have realistic goals. I want to try to get to this next level. When it's all just abstracted in your head, it's much easier, I think, to get lost in more like delusions of grandeur. I don't know. This my whole life is I'm good at things and I'm around people who are great at those things, and it's all very humbling.
Yeah. I love that. That really resonates with my own experience. I'm thinking just in terms of YouTubers. When I hang out with this guy called Mr. Who's the Boss. His name's Aaron. He's got 20 million subscribers, and I asked him how long does it take him to write a video script. He said, maybe about 60 to 100 hours. And I was like, oh, it takes me maybe half an hour to write a script. It takes you 60 to 100 hours per video. Okay, this is why you have 20 million subscribers. I get it. I'm not even trying. Great. And it's just such a nice. It's like, okay, of course I can't compete with that. And nor would I want to. It's like, I know the game. I know what it takes to get there, which is just an insane amount of talent and effort. And I'm just not there in terms of talent or in terms of effort. So fair enough. My standards can get lower. This is one of the things I love about Oliver Berkman's stuff. He just his work. I'm reading Meditations for Mortals at the moment. Just encourages us to be more mediocre, and I love it. I'm like, just embracing mediocrity is so good.
The great people are stressed out too. Like the be great, man. It doesn't make it better. Like if you're like the great writer, and I had the same conversation, by the way, with someone in my life in writing, where I was like, oh, look at this like feature article in the New Yorker. Like this is just better than what I'm writing. And they're like, yeah, but that's all that person is doing. That's their full-time job, is writing. Like all of their energy is going into that, right? Like you're writing on the side when you have time or whatever. And the thing is, of the people who are the really great, who like got the Pulitzer, here's the problem. The next year they're like, this thing didn't get nominated for the Pulitzer. There's no winning, right? So yeah, I love that idea of like being good, not great, is actually like a fantastic sweet spot sometimes.
Oh yeah, just on that actually, we had a really good workshop when I was in like my fourth year of med school, where it was titled How to Be a Great Doctor, but the whole message was that don't try and be great, try and be good. Because if you're a good doctor, it's like that has the connotations of like, you're doing your job, you're showing up, you're doing the nice thing, you're doing right by your patients. But if you're trying to be a great doctor, all of a sudden ego gets in the way, and now you're like trying to do things that are like, you're trying to get the professorship or the prize or the academic qualification or the whatever, because that's what a great doctor would do. But weirdly, the great sort of aspiring for greatness can be the enemy of actually just being a good doctor, showing up and sort of helping out the patients. And I just loved that kind of framing of it. All right, next question. How do you balance your life to not get into burnout? What should we do every day for this proactively?
Well, okay. So, this is why I'm a big believer in time blocking, because yes, you're giving every minute of your workday a job, but you control your workday. And now you have like a lot, when you control your time this way, now you can do things like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm coming off of like a hard push. So I'm only going to schedule 4 hours of this day, right? Or this day I have energy. It's going to be a longer day. When you control your time, you can titrate it up and down. Whereas if you're instead just like, should I be working now? You could always just tell yourself like, yeah, there's something more to do. Then couple that with seasonality at various time scales, right? Well, this is the idea, is that various time scales, you have variation in intensity. So in a day, you have variation. There's the part when I'm working, and then the part where my schedule says I'm done. I'm really not working, right? Maybe on the week you have variation. I'm going to kind of take it easy on Friday. I have like a busy push early in the week. I have a deadline on Thursday. Friday, I'm gonna go easier to balance it out. Then you can have seasonality at the higher levels as well. Like January is going to be a slow month for me, or I'm going to make the summer slow, but I'm going to be getting after this big project in the fall. So if you control your time, you have the possibility of controlling your downtime. And if you couple that technique with the philosophy of seasonality, to me, that's what I do. I'm up and down on all sorts of different time scales, and that really helps prevent burnout.
Fantastic. Cal, thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. I'm going to open the chat. Chat, can we give some love to Cal Newport, please? Thank you so much for taking time out on a Sunday to join us. You've had, as you know, I've told you this repeatedly, an enormous impact on my life. I was a fan of the blog back when I was at university. Then I discovered the books, and like at every stage, you're like shining the light for sort of me and sort of, I guess, my generation of people doing anything in the world, like trying to be productive, trying to live an intentional life. And all of your stuff is just like so resonant and so good. And we've got, man, an insane amount of like stuff in the chat. Everyone loves you. Thank you so much, Cal, for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Of course, I love it. Always a pleasure to talk. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Alrighty, so that is the final session. Massive thank you to Cal Newport for joining us. Yeah, cannot overstate how impactful Cal's stuff has been on me. I feel almost emotional thinking about it, because like, back in like 2012 when I first started medical school, Cal had his Study Hacks blog, and I used to read that to get like advice on studying and like adventure studying and all this sort of stuff. And then I don't think it was called lifestyle centric career planning then, but one of the big things that Cal talked about in a blog post back in like 2009 was how don't think about what to do with your life based on what your degree happens to be. Instead, you're doing your degree or whatever you're doing at university. Think about what you want your life to look like, and then figure out what career you want from there. Because if you start with the qualification, if you start with a degree, and let's say you did a degree in economics, and I think the example he uses, what are your options? Well, management, investment banking, management consulting, private equity, hedge fund, whatever. It's like if you start with the qualification, you end up in a very kind of rigidly defined path. And actually, there's like infinite different ways to live life. Whereas if you start with what is the lifestyle you actually want, you can then reverse engineer interesting career paths from that. And that was a huge source of inspiration and action for me when I was at university. And even when I was working full-time as a doctor, and even now, just sort of remembering this values-based, lifestyle-centric career planning. That, to be honest, is what a lot of the stuff we've been doing over this last weekend has been about. It's been about values-based, lifestyle-centric career planning, career and life planning. Values-based in the sense of by doing a life compass, by reflecting on 2024, by figuring out what were the things that we did that we maybe could have done differently or that kind of thing. Let me just stop sharing my screen. But by reflecting on that sort of stuff, that's the stuff that gives us an indication of what our values are, the values-based. Lifestyle-centric is like, what kind of lifestyle do you want? That's where things like the vision board help. That's where things like, one of the exercises I love is the ideal ordinary Tuesday exercise, which sort of Cal kind of alluded to in terms of like, what does your ideal day look like? If you can start optimizing your life to work towards that ideal day, that's great as well. And I think another great point that Cal just made as well is that when it comes to what does your ideal day look like, it's probably not spending loads of time on a private yacht or a private jet or like something really, really bougie. For most of us, our ideal day is like, I wake up without an alarm. Maybe I do some exercise. Maybe I go for a walk in the morning. Maybe I do a few hours of deep work where I'm maybe with like one or two team members or one or two colleagues, or I'm in a coffee shop. Maybe I don't know, have a nice lunch break, do some more work, hang out with my coworkers, come home and spend time with the family. It's generally fairly basic ass stuff that we are optimizing for. And by recognizing that it's this sort of basic stuff that we're optimizing for, it means that we don't have to be wedded to, man, if I don't have $1 billion valuation by the time I'm 30, I'm a loser. Or man, if I don't have 10K a month coming in passive income, I'm a loser. It's like, I think the internet and a lot of the sorts of content that are sort of productivity and adjacent to productivity can make us feel like we have to want more and more and more and more. But by figuring out what's the life you actually want to live, for most of us, it's a pretty modest life. And for most of us are closer to that life than we think. So anyway, massive thank you to Cal Newport, one of the OGs in the productivity world. That kind of brings us to the end of Spark 2025. We have one more session that is happening in approximately 10 minutes, which is the AI-powered productivity workshop for people who are in our VIP program. You have 10 minutes left to join the VIP program if you want. There'll be a link in the chat for whatever that's worth. That will give you access to all these recordings and also the AI-powered productivity workshops, and also you get the AI prompting guide, and also you get $97 off our productivity bundle if you want. And also there's a money back guarantee on it. So if you want, you can sign up to the VIP package to join the workshop that's in approximately 10 minutes. The other thing to plug is our LifeOS course. Final time I plug it, it's gonna be happening from the 18th of January, Saturday the 18th of January, Saturday the 25th of January, and Saturday the 1st of February. Those are the 3 dates where I'm going to be hosting live sessions for the LifeOS live cohort. So if you would like to join that, feel free. Again, money back guarantee on that, so there's no risk. If you join it, you don't like it, then we'll just literally give you your money back. But I just want to say a massive thank you. If you got value from this session, we're going to put a link to the testimonial thing. I would love it if you could leave a testimonial, please. The key thing I would say is that what's the point of doing a workshop like this? The point of doing a workshop like this is, as I've alluded to, it's about making sure that we're actually going in the right direction. The other metaphor about this is that, we're all trying to climb the next rung of the ladder, but it's worth occasionally taking some time to think about, is the ladder leaning up against the right wall? Or are we climbing a ladder that we really don't want to be climbing? That kind of thing. I think about this a lot. The quality of our goals literally changes the quality of our life. If I were to set, if we just think about work, for example, My goal could be to make our LifeOS course really good. My goal could be to write my next book. My goal could be to build on X software platforms. The goal could be to try and get a $100 million valuation. Like, in every field, there are multiple goals you could be pursuing. And often we don't think about which ones we want to go for. Because generally, once you're pretty competent at getting stuff done, you'll be able to achieve most goals you set your mind to, given a long enough time horizon. And so the only real question is that's left is, okay, what goal do you want to pursue? You can make anything happen with enough discipline, willpower, motivation, time, consistency, all of the action stuff. You can make anything happen. It's just a case of choosing the goal. So I hope that this weekend has given you some sense of what goals to work towards. I'm gonna open just as a quick heads up, this cohort of the LifeOS will be the only live cohort thing that we do this year, most likely, at least in the realm of productivity. So if you want to join a live course, this is the only time we're doing it this year, so you can join if you feel like it. Final thing to say is I have to say a massive thank you to everyone in my team who have been here and have already the unsung heroes of Productivity Spark. There's 10 plus people in my team who are here on the Zoom webinar, making sure everything's working, who are manning our support inbox, answering all the support queries that are coming in, that are dealing with all the operations behind the scenes for everyone who's registered for the event and making sure you guys get links and stuff on time, dealing with all the VIP people, making sure they get the recordings of the event on time. So I'm going to open up the chat. Everyone, can we send some love to the team, please? Because without them, I definitely would not be doing this, because I would not physically be able to handle the operational load of dealing with a webinar where 110,000 people have registered and 20,000 people are consistently showing up, and thousands and thousands of people are sending us emails saying hey, where's the link? Can I have this? Can I have the materials? Can I have the link to the Spotify playlist? And the team is just being an absolute freaking champs in just dealing with all of that on a weekend, the first weekend back after the holidays. So massive thank you to my team for making this happen. And guys, the testimonials, to be honest, they're less for me and more for the team. I read the testimonials and I think, yeah, that's cool, that's kind of nice. But I get a lot of love and adoration from the audience anyway. The team doesn't. So if you have found this event useful, please do leave us a testimonial, and that will also help our team feel much better about rocking up all day, all night on a Saturday and a Sunday in the first weekend of January to make this happen. All that's left to say is a huge thank you to everyone for attending. I hope you got some value out of this. I will see some of you in 5 minutes for the AI-powered productivity workshop. Everyone else, please make sure you're on the newsletter if you would like to be. I think you are automatically if you signed up, so don't unsubscribe. You can, of course, unsubscribe from any email we send you, but if you stay subscribed to the email list, we will let you know when the next quarterly planning event is going to be. It is likely to be late March or early April. Just looking ahead in my calendar. Maybe it'll be somewhere around the 29th of March, something like that. So maybe the 29th of March, that would probably make the most sense. But either way, we're going to be doing these things every quarter, and I hope, and this has been fun, and I hope that you'll join us for Productivity Spark 2026 as well next year. Again, if you're on the newsletter and following me on the various socials, you'll find out more details about that. So thank you so much for taking the time. I had a great time. It's currently 2 a.m, and now I need to do a AI workshop. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of day. Have a lovely rest of week. I hope you do some homework and really realign on what your quarterly quests are, because obviously a different quarterly quest will change the way that you approach the quarter. And if you ever happen to see me in person, say hi and let me know, and let me know what your quarterly quests are and that you attended this event. So really appreciate you showing up and for being so engaged in the process. Again, massive shout out to the team. And I will see some of you in 5 minutes for the AI workshop. And the rest of you, I will see hopefully 3 months from now on our next quarterly alignment workshop. So have a lovely day. Have a lovely quarter. All the best with hitting your goals in a productive, enjoyable, and efficient way. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. This is still on. Is this still on? I think it's still on.
What, baby? What? Come okay, Lizzo. It's okay, Lizzo. Yeah, baby girl. It's okay. Come here, come here, come here. It's okay, it's okay. What's up, loser? Oops, broke a glass. There's Lizzo. Hi, Lizzo. And there's Texel. Hi, Texel. And there's my little baby girl. This little Foster, Lulaboon. Look at how beautiful she is. She's been purring away on my lap all morning. I was supposed to stay awake and get stuff done, but I just passed out, and she passed out on top of me. What a lovely little girl she is. And there's little, yep. Oh my goodness. There you go. And there we got Miley. And there we have Texel. This is Lulaboot's brother. Yeah, I see your brother up there, Texel. He's a beautiful, big, beautiful furry man. Lovely, lovely boy. Yes, you're a good guy. Yes, you are. All right.